Yeah, the focus becomes a lot sharper. During camp, our 3 different coordinators do an awesome job of big picture in camp, what we need to work on to get ready for the season in all different facets. We cover everything. And then last couple days of camp, we start focusing in on the specific game plan, for week 1 with Old Dominion. And now it's just a laser sharp focus on exactly what we're going to be doing in that game. And so I think camp is over. We gave them a little bit of a break. I really believe that we're going to have a lot of energy today, a lot of excitement, that it is game week and that we will have that laser sharp focus.
You look at the depth chart, a lot of familiar names in there again this year. Not a whole lot of freshmen, but there are some intermingled. But talk about the first depth chart and where you think this team's at right now.
Yeah, we sort of said all along that we have some really good players and guys that have significant game experience. But again, big picture, we needed to close the gap with our backups, role players that we're going to be playing, but or backing up in significant spots. And so I think that's one of the things that we've thought way back since early last December, and we wanted to do through recruiting and then through just player development and becoming more familiar with our schemes and the off-season strength and conditioning program. And so, when we look at it on paper and then in practice, we feel pretty good, about where we're sitting. I think that those things are still going to have to play out. I mean, we are still going to have quality depth at a number of places. And, you don't know that for sure until the games start. But that was sort of a focus, and we feel good about it, but it has to bear out.
One noticeable omission, of course, Pat O'Connor. We know he's done for the year. What does that loss mean to your team?
Well, I'm a semantics guy, so he's still with us, and he's still going to have a tremendous impact on our team, as a captain. But yeah, obviously on Saturday afternoons, we'll miss him. I mean, just a dominant player, and tons of energy that people fed off of, and so he's going to be doing that from the sideline, and he'll do a great job with that. There's no question. And, you immediately think of, who's his replacement going to be. And I think that really you have to look at it in terms of all of the defense is going to have to pick up their game. And then, to be honest with you, the entire team. You have to have 105 guys and coaches and everybody. I mean, everybody just has to do their job even a little bit better. And as anybody knows, the team is always, greater than an individual. But he'll be a loss on the field.
The team did name 5 additional captains today, and those guys will, of course, on game day be counted on a lot more than maybe they had. But what do you see those 5 players stepping up and doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good group, and those guys were all leaders, prior to being named captain. But the staff and the team all voted, and pretty clear that those guys were the ones to join Pat, as team captains this year. And if it's possible for them to step up their game even more, great. But they were voted captain because of who they are, that people believe in them on and off the field, and of course the production that they'll bring on Saturdays.
A big picture thing, and for you, year 2 now, and how much different is it going to be for you Saturday afternoon to run out of that tunnel now in year 2 versus, say, 365 days ago when you look back at your first time running out of the tunnel?
I think it's a key for our program. I think the step that we need to take this year is that, on Saturday afternoons, in game situations, in critical moments, to really, as individuals and then as a team, to believe that we're going to be successful. And when you haven't gone through it before, you still believe and can believe, but it's a little bit more difficult because you have less to substantiate that belief, less of a foundation. So I think all of us in year 2, with the off seasons, with the back-to-back years now in the offense, the defense, and the special teams, with the schemes, with the same staff, being together more, that we have there's more foundation for us to believe in. And so I think that is the difference, and it also has to be the difference, as we kick off the season Saturday.
You look at Saturday's game, and it's a rematch of a year ago. Old Dominion club that defense had a really good game in a driving rainstorm, and it was a miserable night for everybody. But you look at that game, and a lot of positives come out of it defensively. Offensively, I know there were some things that you guys really wanted to work on, but it kind of also proved that it maybe a turning point for where the quarterback battles. What do you, when you look back at last year against Old Dominion, what sticks out at you?
Well, first of all, it was a really good game, and a lot of attention with their quarterback, who's now with the Minnesota Vikings, I believe, and had a phenomenal career. And I know that that took a lot of our attention, last year, and now he's gone. But a fantastic running back, freshman last year, has emerged. But really, I just think looking at the tape, defensively, we felt as though we took step forwards in that game, and then when we watch it offensively, it doesn't look like us right now, and we look different, and we look better, and that has to happen again in games on Saturday afternoons. But it just feels like a different team, both sides of the ball and special teams. There's things in that game that we just really shake our head, and it was just it wasn't good, overall, and we just feel as though we're in a better place.
They're going to start a kid who, of course, very talented, but has yet to throw a collegiate pass. Kind of similar to a situation you were in last year, of course, with Reggie, with his first start. What do you think that means? Do you think that that maybe he'll have some butterflies initially, and what does that mean for your team to think about, knowing that the opposing sideline is kind of an open book that has yet to be written?
Well, to be starting at Old Dominion, he's good. There's no question about that. And so I think we haven't talked directly about this, but you like to be able to see a guy to know how to prepare for him. The age sometimes doesn't matter as much because he's going to be good, but not being able to really prepare for him, having watched him play in college games, just not knowing your opponent after the 8 or 9 months that you've been off. You have film that you're watching and whatnot, but so many things can change in the off season, and then when their quarterback is somebody that been tougher to plan for. I'd rather be familiar than be surprised, but we know he's going to be really good.
Also a special day on Saturday, just for the aspect that kind of a unique situation. You're going to be honoring another team's program by wearing a uniform, but it means a big thing for Eastern Michigan to have a guy like Bob Parks back.
Oh, no question. I mean, Coach Parks just sent us, some press clippings and whatnot, just helping in recruiting. We got him a couple days ago, and he's been very, very helpful. And I think a guy like that transcends one program. The guy like that impacts a whole department and can impact the university. I've had several conversations with him, and it's very easy to tell why he's been so successful. And it is unique. Our track program has incredible, rich history and tradition. So we're excited about, honoring them by wearing, special jerseys and by making that day a tribute to a legacy, to Coach Parks. We want to honor him with our jerseys, but we want to honor him with our play on the field and to make it a festive day, after that game's over.
Last question before we go to Coach DeBoer, but complete opposite of last year. You're on the road the entire month of September. You were only one of 2 clubs around the country that had that oddity. But this year you get 3 home games in September. It'll be good to be at home in your own venue for a change, for an extended period.
Yeah, again, last year seems like a long time ago, but just looking back, we opened up at home in August and won the game, and it was a neat night. It was a neat night, and then we weren't back again until I think the second Saturday in October for a homecoming. So it was a long time. So any of the momentum and traditions that you're starting and whatnot, that's a long break. And with the weather in September and just trying to establish who we are in the community and here at the school, we're excited about being at home in September.
Coach, before you look at your depth chart you released, of course, not a whole lot of surprises there, especially at quarterback, but you have to feel pretty good with the 2 first guys you got running out there in Reggie and Brogan. Talk about the battle between during fall camp?
Yeah, Reggie went in this year as number 1, and Brogan last year was in that position, and I think just what you see over the last 2 years is that they're each making the other guy better, and just pushing. I thought, this spring, I thought Reggie continued to have a strong upper hand, but you can just tell Brogan's continued to work, and he's kept a great attitude, and just continues to push Reggie, and he's forced Reggie to become better. I thought Brogan had a real nice fall camp. He's really come along, I think, in his passing game. He's always had a good savvy to him as far as being a leader, and his decision making is good. But he's really pushing Reggie, and Reggie is risen as well. And Reggie's throwing the ball extremely well. The X factor is, of course, his ability to run. That isn't necessarily something that we just do, or we just call a lot of run plays for Reggie. We just try to let it happen throughout the course of the game, and we really got to make sure his ball security is intact. That was something that we really challenged him this year with, compared to last year. And excited to roll him on the field, and see what he can do now in year 2 with a lot of experience under his belt.
Last year you had a lot of flexibility in the running back spot, just because you had Bronson and you had everybody else back there. Now you continue that trend, but other than Darius Jackson, a lot of new names back there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we probably are a little more focused on just 2 right now, but, guys like Ian Erickson, Juwan Lewis, those guys are right there ready to go as well. But right now, DJ and Shaq Van are the guys that have been really taking the most reps with the ones. And a year ago, you had Bronson and Brummy, and then DJ was in there as well. So I feel these guys have gotten a lot of great reps, worked well with the offensive line, and excited to see what they do. DJ brings what I've seen him improve on is just a more powerful run game in between the tackles, the ability to get north and south, and the desire to put your head down and get some hard yards. And in the past, I think he's been more successful on the outside. He's really improved his game in that way.
You look at the wide receiver spot, you only have 2 guys coming back that started a game in this program's history. Of course, Chris Strange and Dustin Creel, and they've been vital pieces of your offense. But how do you see some other guys working in there?
Yeah, I know in the passing game, I guess I always consider the running backs and tight ends. I mean, how are they all going to work together in unison and get the correct spacing and be on the same page with the checks and things like that. And it starts with Chris and Dustin, as receivers. We're certainly going to need some more help there with younger guys coming along, and they're doing a really good job. But, Cody Tuttle and Sam Browning at tight end, they're just probably bigger receivers or smaller tight ends, I guess, when you look at them. And the things that they've done for us in fall camp have been really nice to see. And then DJ and Shaq, I think that's where you see our offense continuing to grow, is the quarterbacks having the ability to find them in the passing game. Maybe they're not the primary guy on a route, but the reads and progressions through it. There's a trust that, hey, these guys are going to catch the ball and they're going to be at this spot, and we need to have 5 skills on the field that can all catch a ball and make a big play. After they've done that, I think we're getting closer to doing that.
On the offensive line, center has changed a little bit. You've got Thornton there instead of Hercom. And then you move out on the end. You got Cole Gardner out there. Just what do those guys mean this year in trying to help that running game grow? Right.
Well, I think Cole and Andrew Wiley have been the most consistent. Just since day one, they've been really consistent. And that's a real comforting thing to have 2 tackles that you feel good about, and they're only getting better. They're both juniors, and so that's exciting, not just short term but long term. And then Jake's been working back from his injury from a year ago, and really worked hard at it. And he's gonna find a way to get on the field. If it's not center, at some guard. And between he and Matt, they'll kind of lock down that center position, I think, for the most part. And then a guy like K. John Armstrong at guard has just, as a freshman, he just doesn't have the snaps under his belt. And him playing some guard, for 4 years, I mean, it's a pretty exciting thing, because physically there's not a doubt he can do it. And so it's just going to be something that, I'm really looking forward to seeing the development of him, throughout the years.
You redshirted a lot of kids last year, plus you bring in this new class this year. How many people ideally do you see between that redshirt freshman class and freshman class really contributing?
Yeah, I've already mentioned Shaq Van. You got a guy like Blake Banham who will be on the field a lot for us, in different roles as a running back, as a receiver. He's really a guy that's used to line up in the backfield. And then you got guys like Isaiah Fuller at receiver. He's right up there at the top of the depth chart as well. So we expect him to help out quite a bit. Ian Erickson's a guy that redshirted at running back a year ago. He's ready to go. He knows what he's doing. He's a really good football player. He's as competitive as anyone I've ever seen on our team.
You look back at last year, and Coach kind of mentioned it. What would you have when you looked at the tape of Old Dominion? What do you think you could have done differently last year?
Well, I think we were still trying to figure out. We had different quarterbacks from week one to, that game, and we had Reggie starting earlier in the first game, and then we were with Brogan in that game against ODU, and then by the end of the game, we had rolled with Rob. So I think there was still kind of a feeling out process we were going through as far as who we really were the most successful with and who moved the ball down the field, and you can see that because we're in a bunch of different looks. Just what we're doing. It's a couple different offenses gelled into one game. So I think we're more defined now who we are. We know how to use our talent. Our quarterbacks understand their keys and their reads better, and I think we're just more in sync.
Any questions? I think we're good.
All right. Thank you.
Coach, you look at the depth chart you guys released, and of course the big hole on there that Coach Creighton already kind of talked about was no OC, and that's certainly not a good thing that anybody wants to see, but it's kind of that next guy up mentality, right?
Absolutely. There's two guys, Derek Dunlap and Deshae Powell, that have both stepped in. Derek kind of got a jump on that in the spring because Deshae was missing some time with an injury. He's been healthy and gone through all practice in the fall, but Derek took a step forward without Mike Steels, in the program, and so really filled in some spots. And actually, there were some times in spring practice where we showed a couple clips to our entire defense where we were able to do something kind of for the first time since we've installed this defense in the way that we were trying to do it, and it had a lot to do with the way Derek was playing that position. So, he steps up in a big way for us. Could also be playing some nose guard with Mike out potentially for this week too. Still Mike's kind of day-to-day. So, and then Deshae and then Clay Dawson has helped us a lot as well because, he fills in. Jeremiah could be very multiple like OC was, and so Clay can come in and play Jeremiah's spot, and Jeremiah can stay on the field.
What do you kind of see Jeremiah needing to make that step forward from his freshman year to now being a sophomore?
The one thing about when you jump in and start playing as a freshman as a young defensive lineman is you miss some of the weight training that goes on in that first semester of your college year. They are on more of a maintenance program than they are on a developmental program. So the guys that end up redshirting or playing few snaps get to lift more, and they get to take care of their body more in that first year. I think Jeremiah did an excellent job of that. He's put on a little bit of weight and is definitely one of our stronger players. And so now, I think you're going to see a change in how he plays the game based on that.
Linebacker certainly where you bring back a lot of guys that have starts, and two guys that it certainly steps up there, and Anthony Zappone and Great eBay, and two guys that have really made their importance felt and kind of taken that leadership role now too.
They sure have. They are both guys that know the defense. They spend a lot of time studying it, especially eBay, studying the defense and knowing what we're doing, and can be a voice for the defense. For other guys, they can be very helpful with the front. They know what's going on behind them. eBay was out a couple practices in the middle of camp, and Zappone completely stepped up in that situation as well. So the two of those guys are in a great leadership position, at that inside linebacker spot.
Your secondary, with the exception of Ray Tillman, everybody is an underclassman basically in that group. And it's got to make you feel good that you've got still time to make these guys grow, especially a guy like a Jason back there in the secondary.
Yeah, it's exciting to watch Jason, mature and grow in this defense. He's a guy that got kind of thrown to the wolves, making his first start. I think it was against Florida, and he had some moments that would scare a lot of people away, and back him down. And I think he's a fighter. He's a guy that goes out to practice every single day. I'm stealing one of Coach Keene's words, with great strain. I mean, he works really hard at it, and is becoming a much more mature, responsible player in the process too, which is good to see. He's definitely not a guy that feels like he's arrived, playing the position that he's playing for the second straight year. So
injuries at safety certainly have taken their toll, and that's a spot that, of course, you look back on, and it's either a help or hindrance, knowing what you guys allowed in terms of big plays last year.
Yeah, we were really looking forward to having some young depth at that position, maybe even a freshman that would have potentially contributed to that, to allow us to maybe even rotate a few times, throughout the game at that position. And we've got a couple of those guys banged up right now, so it's harder to do so. But Juan Geraldo, who is coming in, wasn't here for any of those big plays last year, but has a year of experience underneath his belt. Is going to come. He's very calm, keeps things under control, and does his job well. I think is going to help in that.
You look at Old Dominion; they're going to start a quarterback that never taken a collegiate snap before, and of course he's going to have some butterflies. That's going to also in turn fire up your defense to know that you get a chance to make a statement early.
Yeah, it does. He's an accomplished quarterback, and he spent a year underneath the record-setting Heineke from last year. So, he's going to at least know what it should look like, and I think that he'll come in with their system and with what they try to do. He's going to try to get on a roll, throwing the football. Our biggest challenge will be, putting him in more of those situations where he has to throw the ball. And they've got a great running back, a guy who was freshman of the year last year in the conference, and so. We're going to have to, as always, do a great job controlling the line of scrimmage and trying to stop the run, to put that young quarterback in some of those situations where he's got to make plays with his feet, potentially with the rush, and then he's also got to make good decisions with the ball.
How much does having Reggie in the offense clicking really help your defense? Because it gives you guys time to recover from being out there on the field, and just not, because that was the biggest thing. You guys spent a lot of time on the field last year.
I've always stated that our best friend is time of possession. So when our offense is possessing the ball and or scoring points, I mean, big plays don't hurt either. So if we have a chance to sit on the sideline and make sure that we're discussing the one or two things that affected us or surprised us in a previous series, calm ourselves down if we need to, rev ourselves up if we need to. Those things happen in all ball games where you've got to be able to manage that. And so I think too, when I look at what our offense does with Reggie being in his second year coming back, is he has, in addition to growing and developing and whatnot, he has stressed us throughout all of this fall camp in a ton of ways. Him and Brogan both. I mean, because they could do things differently very well, and so that's put us back in the drawing board, much like you'd be on the sideline at times trying to figure out how to deal with those guys.
You look back at the game against ODU last year, and certainly it was a game that the weather played a big factor in, but at one point your defense on 7 possessions forced 5 punts, had a fumble, and then a goal line stand. Do you go back to that tape and say, guys, we can do this against this team?
Yeah, I know our guys know that and believe in themselves and their ability to play this game. There's some clips from that game that have showed up at different times, but we did not sit down with them and watch that game specifically. but the confidence that what we did last year, I think has helped us be excited about the position we're in right now. One of the things that we didn't do last year is force a second half turnover, and our goal and our objective is 3. And so it's like anything, we gave up one big play on a 55-yard touchdown run. One guy off on one play or one guy not quite there on one play can make a huge difference in a ball game, and that game became, a prime example of that.
Think we're good?
Good. Awesome.